Hi, I'm Emily, and this is Indie Book Reviews. Welcome back. I hope we're all doing well. This week we have a bit of a dark fantasy. I'm bad at identifying genres, so I was like, this is fantasy. It has like a little bit of like a fantasy vibe, but it's also like almost fiction, except the main character is a kobold. Is that how you pronounce that word? I don't know. My phone's recording, so I can't look it up. I've always pronounced it kobold. It's like a rodent man? I probably should have looked this up before I started recording, but I didn't. So kobold is what we're going with. Today's book is called 4 Scales Alone by, please forgive me, Daniel Sheley? I literally asked him how to pronounce his name, but unfortunately linguistics go right over my head. Sheley is what I'm going with. That's what we're going with. I'm so sorry. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. So this is a dark fantasy because it has themes of grief and violence. The violence is rather gory and in depth. It's not like a lot of it, but the parts that are there, it's definitely a visual, and heavy on the grief. Grief drives the story. Grief, anger, and revenge. Brief synopsis for Scales Alone is about a kobold man named Jed who is rushed out of his home when a group of people destroy it. He loses everything and goes on a mission for revenge. That being said, let's jump into the writing quality because this was, I can't even tell you. I have to tell you, it's kind of a book review, but oh my goodness. Writing quality we have at an 8.5 out of 10, and I will be using the 10-point rating system. It seems like that had like a good positive reaction to it, so that's what we're going with. The writing in this book was something else, and I mean that in a very good way. It was extremely unique. When writing my review on Goodreads and Amazon, the 3 words that I came up with to describe the writing was poetic, rugged, and thoughtful. I can't even wrap my head around it. Every single word and simile and metaphor chosen was so thoughtfully chosen. It was so like specific and detailed and things I would never think about. The word choice was very poetic, as was the cadence, but the cadence also sort of leaned on rugged, as in it could be sort of like shortened in a way. Like, I don't know how to explain it. The only way you can see it and like really understand it is to read it. But I loved it. It immediately drew me into this book. I immediately was reading it and was like, this is good. This is what I'm going to do my book review on because it was just so impressive. Genuinely impressive to read this. Throughout the entire book, like you would think I would get used to it, but I didn't. By chapter 20, I'm still like jaw on the floor, cannot believe the metaphors that are coming out of these pages. It was beautiful. Not only that, but I was immersed. So impressed and immersed entirely in the setting, in the descriptions of every little thing, like the seagulls and the smell of rope and tar, and it takes place on this like seaside city, so a lot of time is spent on like the docks and on the beach. I was there. It was a movie in my head. It was so vivid and it was just a job well done. It had a very powerful writing, not just in a way where it brought me into the story, but by chapter 3, I was like ready to cry. It's a heartbreaking way to start a story. I was in there with tears in my eyes. And the way that it's written is just so very impactful. So overall, writing was really incredible. I loved it. It was different, and that speaks to me. I like things that are unique, so obviously like that will carry over into the creativity section. But for now, let's talk about plot, which I rated at a 9 out of 10. It was very straightforward. I had an easy time coming up with the synopsis for this one because it is a very straightforward plot. There is one thing that we're focusing on the whole time, but I couldn't guess the outcome. I think Jed's character was so unlike other main characters that I'm used to reading that I didn't know what he was going to do or what the outcome was going to be. I think in stories of revenge, you have a very common theme of the main character not getting their revenge and deciding to be the bigger person and say, you know, like, it's not worth it, or this isn't gonna help me. And I didn't know if that was how things were going to go. It was unpredictable. I was immediately curious. Obviously, the second the book opened, I was ready to cry, and I was immediately wondering where it was going to go. Because we have this big opening scene, and then it sort of calms down for a second, and you're wondering what's going to happen next. And the second we figure it out, which it doesn't take too long, but the second we figure out, like, that he's on this mission, it kept me not quite on the edge of my seat in a way. Like, it wasn't a nail biter, but it was like a feeling of waiting. I don't know how to explain it. And there was, obviously it's a spoiler-free review, so I can't go into too much detail, but the succession of plot points or the way that things unfolded, the succession of scenes was very impactful. Again, like, that's not something I usually think about when I'm reading. I think this is like the first time I've mentioned something like that on this channel. But it's just something that I noted. The way that things unfolded was done right, like with the correct pacing and timing. Now, our main themes, as I said, are grief, distraction, and revenge. So that's what makes it a dark fantasy, was that it was based on more dark themes. Maybe that's why it felt so tense to me, but it was a good tense. It's a tense that pushes you forward. Now, let's talk about characters, which I have at an 8 out of 10. Jed is a kobold. Come on. The second I read that, I was like, okay, so I'm reading this book, because that's amazing. Kobolds have a place in my heart because I play World of Warcraft, which kobolds are like very notorious in the game. They like hold a special spot in the game. So I was super interested right away, and I thought that was the coolest thing. But he's got a lot of depth to him. He's quiet, but he's also full of emotion. It's just sort of waiting to spill out. And it does in ways that we don't really expect. And this is what I find so interesting. Okay, I love characters. I love complex characters. I love a villain story. I love getting into a villain's head. And I'm not saying he was a villain, but Jed didn't want to be a better man. He let this hate consume him, this grief and this rage consume him and drive his actions and change him. And he never once in the story was like, maybe I should be the better man. Maybe I should turn my cheek. No, he refused. That is so riveting. That is so fun to read. I mean, like, don't, like, call me crazy. Don't call me crazy. Just, like, villain stories like that are so much fun because they're so different and so complex. So this was, like, it was so interesting to sort of read his behaviors and his actions and get inside his head. Even though we don't really have, like, an inner monologue much, I don't think, but we still get to, like, know him in a way that I don't even know if he knows himself. We also have our side characters, Mara and Bran, and they're crucial to the story. They both have very distinguishable characteristics, which we all know I'm a fan of. They're cool, they're nice, but they're not overly trusting, which I find that side characters typically can be, or most characters typically can be, like, super overly trusting. But they weren't like, I'm gonna kill and die for this guy I just met. They were rational, and they were also extremely important to the storyline, which we love that. Now, creativity in the story is insane, and I can't wait to talk about it. I have it at a 10 out of 10. So this is our 10 out of 10 rating for the video. Main character's a kobold. Come on. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. Tell me the last time you read a story with a kobold. Tell me. And if you have, leave it in the comments so I can read it. The writing, obviously, I mentioned, was super unique. I have never read a story like it before. I love it. I love different writing styles. I think that's so interesting and fun and motivates me to read when there is an author with a different writing style than what I'm used to. And like I said, the descent into madness. But it's not like an insanity sort of madness. It's just like this quiet, rumbling thing, while he uses this like motivation for revenge and this hatred to stabilize him. It's very well done. I loved it. I'm so excited to talk about this, obviously. I just found it so interesting. And these are like my favorite kind of stories, so that might be why I'm, like giving it such high reading and creativity. It's not something I'm used to. Or I wouldn't say it's something that's typical. And when it is done, it's only notable if it's well done. And I mean, like, you really, really drive into it. I love villain stories, so this is now just one of my favorites. I think it's so well done. And again, not that he's a villain, because he wasn't the initiator of the violence, but he certainly carried it on. I had another note here about the outcome of the story and the creativity of it, but then I remember that as a spoiler for your review. So I really, I don't want to give it away, but I do think that the way that the story ends is also unique, because I would have expected it to end differently and it didn't. Now, last but not least, my overall feeling was an 8.5 out of 10. Obviously, as you can tell while I'm talking about it, there are just so many great things about this book that I love because of my personal taste. Everybody has different tastes, but I love books that are written poetically like this. I love villain stories. I love, the mental game of being able to comprehend where a character is coming from and where they are going. So I thought this was an incredible book overall. And like I said, I was intrigued and impressed and immersed. I read this in a very short span of time because I just couldn't put it down, and I was so interested in seeing where it would go next. But I also just couldn't get enough of the writing, and I couldn't get enough of the main character. I don't know, it was just a fantastic book. There's not much more I can say than what I've already said, but I thought it was really, really good. Really, really good. So, obviously, I recommend For Scales Alone, and I absolutely think you should read it if you're into fantasy, or if you're into, sort of the darker themes, I guess. I don't know. I can't even think of any other books to, compare it to, but just an incredible read overall. Anyway, I will have all of the author's links below. I believe he has a couple other books, as well as one coming out next year, and I just submitted my request for an ARC, so I'm really excited about that. So go check it out. I read it on Kindle Unlimited, of course. Gotta let everybody know if it's on KU, just in case. Thank you so much for watching this review. If you liked it, you should give it a like down below. And if you want to see more reviews for indie author books, then you should subscribe. I post every other week. And I think next week we're gonna go with a holiday read. It's snowing out today. 'Tis the season. We're getting close. So if that's something you're interested in, maybe next week you would like to see it. Next 2 weeks. Maybe in 2 weeks you'd like to see it. But also, just a quick self-plug while we're talking about fantasy. I do also have a fantasy book out called Springhaven. The second book is Perfidy, and the third is coming out. Don't ask me when. I don't know. Just throwing that in there. The link for those will also be down in the bottom as well. But for now, keep reading. I hope you have a wonderful day, week, 2 weeks, and I'll see you next time.